Hi there, my name is William Garman, and today I would like to display a project I developed in Unity. The basic idea of the project is that it's a turn-based strategy game based on a cube that you can turn segments of. As you can see, the cube itself is made up of 7x7 grids on each of its faces. These grids have different coloured squares, and the colour of the square represents what kind of terrain it is. So the green squares are fields, the black squares are roads, the brown squares are impassable mountains, and the white, blue and red squares are bases. White squares don't belong to either team, they are unclaimed. Blue squares are bases that belong to the blue team, they have 2, and the red squares are bases that belong to the red team, they also have 2. So, the first thing I'm going to do is spawn an infantry unit from this blue base here. So I'm just going to click on it and click the infantry unit button, and you can see there it appears. Now I'm going to switch over to the red team and I'm going to spawn 2 units for it. Now I'm actually going to use the blue unit I created on the first turn. As you can see, if I click on it, it shows the area it can move to in blue, and if I want to, I can move down to attack that red unit. It shows where the unit can attack in purple. As you can see, infantry units have quite a short range. It also shoots straight. That means if I reposition it to the edge of the cube, you can see it can't shoot at things adjacent to it, but on the other face of the cube. So I'm actually going to use this unit to capture the unclaimed base on the top of the cube. Now you can see the unit is greyed out and can't be used again until next turn. So after spawning 2 more units for the blue team, we're going to switch back to the red one and actually use this unit here to attack the blue unit occupying that base. As you can see, the blue unit has actually lost one of its squares. These squares are called soldiers. Since there are 5 soldiers in the unit, each soldier represents 20% of the infantry unit's health. Losing soldiers is important because units actually deal damage per soldier left in the unit, so that blue unit's now going to do less damage. So after I've spawned 2 more units and moved the other unit close to combat, there's not much else I can do this turn, so I'm going to switch over to blue. Next up I'm going to spawn an artillery unit, which will mean I can't afford any more infantry units this turn. So I'm going to move this damaged unit out of the way and the top unit down to cover the base to stop it from being captured. Now that's covered, I can just spawn a artillery unit up here and that'll be ready to use next turn. The artillery unit is a lot more expensive than the infantry units, but it does do a lot more damage and have a much greater range. But there are some other drawbacks to it I'll get into in a sec. And lastly, after moving that infantry unit a bit closer to that base on the back there, just hoping to sneak in there, there's nothing else I can really do this turn, so I'm going to switch over to red now. You'll notice in the bottom left corner it's got the current team, the resources they have for building units, and then the third thing is the rotation points. These are used for the main feature of the game that I mentioned, the rotating segments of the cube. It costs 2 points to rotate one segment of the cube 90 degrees around the center. The red team has 3 points at the minute, so I could rotate the cube now, but I'm going to wait till the next red turn because I want to show you a specific way it could be used to a strategic advantage. Okay, now that it's the blue team's turn again, I can finally use the artillery unit that I made. You'll notice that its movement range is lower than the infantry units, but its firing range is much larger. As well as this, it can attack things on another face of the cube because it's supposed to attack in a arced fashion. So it can go from one face to another, and also it can go over mountains and other obstacles. One more note on the movement is that unlike the infantry unit, the artillery unit actually can't move from one face to another. This means the only way to move the artillery unit between faces is to rotate the section of cube it is on. If you're curious, the pathfinding in the game is built on Dijkstra's algorithm. Every grid square on the map is represented as a node, essentially, that knows its neighbours. This also means when the cube is rotated, or segments of it is rotated, it's easy to change the map by simply making it redetect its neighbours and change the nodes it's connected to. Speaking of which, as a final thing, I'm going to show you the core feature of the game, which is the ability to rotate segments of the map. Now, I've just pressed the rotation button, so all the green cubes you're seeing are actually essentially buttons that rotate the segment of cube they're over in the direction of the side that they're on. Now, I'm going to choose to rotate this section because it moves the blue team's artillery units away from the face that the blue and red team are contesting, as well as moving the blue team's base away from that face so it can't reinforce quite as quickly. That's a small example of how I think this mechanic could be used in interesting tactical ways. Obviously you can do other stuff, like you could rotate some capturing units into the middle of their base and stuff like that. Finally, I'd just like to say I think this project was quite enjoyable and it was a fun way to learn Unity. I hope you'll have a look at some of my other work, especially how I built on this in my BSc's final year dissertation project. So thanks for watching and goodbye.